Good afternoon, everybody. In a minute, I'm going to be talking to the wonderful Eric and Ellie from I Am A Rocketship, one of my favourite ice creams, a lollipop that's a rocket ship. I'll have to ask them about that maybe. But first, here's this. I need to get going, Mel. I'll see you later. There you go, Eric. A nice bit of marketing right in the middle of.
Exactly. I feel a strange compulsion to get my MacBook elevated a little bit.
Elevated, yes. Like a rocket going up.
Exactly.
Like a rocket ship. There you are. We can just tie things together, can't we? Let's start with that. Where did the name come from? I Am A Rocketship.
Well, we usually say that it was the president of our fan club who named us, but it was actually a very small child who was very much into space at the time, I guess.
Yeah.
What she aspired to was not to be an astronaut. She aspired to be a rocket ship. And we thought, well, aim high, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You got to dream big.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So we heard that. She just walked past and said, I'm a rocket ship. And we were like, that's it.
Yep.
That's what we're calling ourselves.
Well, it seems in recent times that a lot of people have aspired to be a rocket ship. I mean, you've got Branson going up into space. You've got Musk trying to put everybody and their dog up into space. So, in good company, hey?
I'm fine with them going into space. It's to them coming back that it is somewhat problematic.
Yeah. Why do they do that? So, yeah, absolutely. So, tell me, both of you, when did music first start for you? I mean, let's start with Eric. When did music start for you, sir?
Wow. Personally, just as long as I could remember, for some strange reason, I wanted to play guitar. I don't even recall when, but I just drove my poor mother crazy, and she finally got me, when I was 9 years old, a absolutely dreadful harmony acoustic guitar with the strings this high off the fretboard, just to stop me talking. I didn't know how to tune it. I didn't know any songs, but I couldn't put it down. I shudder to think what I was doing with it. But then somehow or other, I managed to take a lesson. And I mostly took a lesson because the guy who gave the lessons seemed to be really cool. He was much older. He was like 12, and he had long, beautiful blonde hair. And I just thought, I want to be as cool as this guy. I never was. I never will be.
What happened to him?
Oh, I mean, he was an older kid. He's,
Maybe he grew up to become famous.
They're a different species.
Well, maybe he did, but maybe he just became a car salesman. You don't know, do you?
I like to have my dreams that he's probably, he was probably Steve Morse, and he probably became immensely famous. And then I ended up playing clarinet and saxophone in middle school, but then for some reason I decided that bass was a lot cooler. I think I must have heard John Entwistle and thought this is way cooler than guitar. Ended up playing bass in bands in high school, and then just kind of bounced around. If somebody needed somebody to play an instrument, I would play the instrument. And it just stuck. It's a lot better than playing golf or collecting old cars or something like that. So yeah.
Okay, and Ellie, we'll come back to some of the names you've mentioned there in a minute, Eric. I'll hold those in memory. Ellie, what about you?
Well, my mother tried to get me to play guitar.
I didn't know that.
And yeah, I tried it once. I was like, no, this is not for me. And I cried until she allowed me to play the cello instead. Because I tried the cello once and fell in love with it. Now, at the time, I was 9, and I thought I would grow taller.
Right.
You can't really tell from the screen, but I'm about 3 apples tall when I stand on one. So I had to lug that cello around for my entire childhood and adolescence.
So you've got a bad back now.
No, but I often wish I had taken up the flute.
Yeah.
But then I actually didn't play in bands.
Nope.
I sang for years and years and years. I was in a choir. I was in another band in Sweden where I sang. I didn't really play an instrument in a band until us, I guess. And
Right.
even then,
And just so people know, what do you play in this band?
I play the keyboard.
You play the keyboard.
But I would say my voice is my main instrument.
Yeah. Singing's always an interesting one for people, because that transition into, with instruments, sometimes that's a really obvious journey. Someone picks up an instrument, has an attraction to an instrument, you know, sticks at it, just enjoys the, you know, as you said, I think we've all been there with a guitar where the strings are like cheese wire and a million miles from the fretboard, but you just, you know, you just do what you can do. And in fact, you quite enjoy the pain, because you just think, if it's painful, it must be good for me. And then you get to a point where actually at some point something half decent comes out. And there it seems a natural progression in terms of instruments. Singing is always an interesting one. When did you realize that you have a voice and that, you know, singing might be something you could do? That's always an interesting.
Oh, well, thank you for saying that I have a voice. I don't think I've realized that yet. It's just.
Oh, okay. Well, you do. So there you go. Now you can move on.
I think it's just the enjoyment of it. It's not that I thought this was the best thing, or this was the thing I was best at, or it was easier. It was just the thing I enjoyed the most out of all the musical options that I tried. And I think that's because my brain thinks of my singing voice as completely different from any instrument. With instruments, I tend to think in sheet music. I tend to think of it more as memorizing a pattern, but with my voice, it's an image.
Right.
Like every song is a full tableau in different colors that I'm walking through when I'm singing, and I don't do that when I play an instrument.
Yeah. You got a little bit of synesthesia there. You know, you actually see things when you sing.
It's amazing us talking about music, because I'll say, well, that's a ninth there, and then we go to a seventh, but then I drop down and I do a fifth, and then and she's explaining it to me in colors. I'm like,
I have no idea. You're talking about the blue song, right? And the part where it goes into more of an orange.
Yeah. I love that.
It's just how I memorize music when I sing.
Yeah. It's how a lot of people who have that gift see music, or they speak music in a different way.
mm-hmm.
It causes a lot of confusion, though, when we're trying to rehearse.
Oh yeah, no, I can understand it. Mike, who's listening, says he played trumpet really badly. It was very painful for his music teacher. Trumpet is definitely one of those that, because my son learned trumpet. When they first start, it's a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare, you know, because you're just trying to get a note out of it and it just sounds awful. Well, once you get it, that's any instrument like that is a wonderful instrument to listen to around the house, but it takes a long time before it comes out.
Right. My brother played the French horn, and I grew up in an apartment.
And you wanted that apartment to grow quite quickly.
I just feel that I'm surprised we didn't get more complaints from the neighbors.
Yeah.
It's
Sweden. They're too polite.
No, absolutely.
We got angry anonymous notes that I don't know about.
So you mentioned a couple of names there. You mentioned Steve Morse,
mm-hmm.
who's obviously the guitarist with Deep Purple. And you mentioned the Ox himself,
right? John
Entwistle. What is it about their playing that you particularly enjoy?
Well, they're completely in a strange way the opposite of each other, though, in that you think superficially as being both capable of playing a lot of notes very quickly, but that's I guess what I liked about them. And I was thinking about this in another context the other day. Somebody told me that creativity comes from limitations, And in particular, somebody like Entwistle, if you think about The Who, the limit, they all played instruments in ways that you would never expect them to play it. I mean, Townsend's a pure rhythm guitarist, brilliant guitar player. Love his composition, his singing, his playing, but he is never going to shred. He's never going to challenge Ingwie for some sort of a speed.
No.
But Keith Moon played lead drums. I mean, he sort of led the band with drums.
Yeah.
And Entwistle was doing the complete opposite of what every other bassist was doing at the time, which was he was supplying the movement and the shifting up and down. I mean, it was almost, as a kid, I listened to tons and tons and tons of classical and Baroque music because that's what my parents played around the house. And his bass playing, actually, this sounds weird, but almost reminds me of Bach. The way you hear the bass lines in a lot of Bach just moving around,
runs of
and constantly changing, while there's almost the continuo is staying steady. And that just appealed to me.
There you go. What about you, Ellie? Did you any influences growing up in terms of music?
Well, I grew up in a completely different musical household. My mother, I'm not sure. My mother was into bagpipe music and musicals.
Okay, that's, you know.
My father was into the Stones and Motown, and he's the one who more shared his music with me. He had a system with a double set of headphones.
Cool.
So he would put a pillow on the floor for each of us, and he'd put the big headphones on my little head, and we'd lie down next to each other, and he'd just play his LPs. And I think it's interesting because that's the sort of music that I gravitated towards listening to, but I can't sing it.
Right.
I can't, my voice doesn't work at all, I think, with that kind of music. So even though in my mind, you know,
You're Aretha Franklin.
In my mind, I'm Aretha Franklin. And what comes out of me is the exact opposite of that, I think. But yeah, every time I go anywhere.
Was there someone along the way then that you heard and you thought, actually, that's more of what I do?
That's a good question. I'm not sure, because I think that the singers who sounded more like me, at first, I stayed away from listening to them.
Right.
I don't think it was until we started, and probably a couple of years after we started making music together, that I really realized that I should
Embrace what you do.
I should embrace my Swedishness. Like I should embrace that sort of, don't put too much emotion into it. Just sing it as if you are actually the person you are. Like sing what you know. Which worked a lot better. So thank you for that. That was
That's hard to do, though, because at the same time, I mean, you think about some of the guitarists, like, let's say, a Steve Morse, or like some of my personal guitar heroes are kind of the oddballs, like Nels Cline or Jim Campolongo or Mark Ribot, players like that, who just play way out there. They sound like they learned guitar on another planet. And if I try to imitate them, I just sound terrible. And so I have to ultimately find out, all right, you're never going to be any of them. What can you do reasonably well? And then I decided, well, okay, I really want to be Andy Partridge. Well, I can't be Andy Partridge either.
But I think, though, that in a way, why I enjoyed listening to the music and I didn't enjoy listening to the singers who were like me, is that I enjoy it more when I don't feel like I can aspire to it. There's no pressure. I don't have to aim for this. I'm never going to be able to hit this. So just enjoy it. It's like really good. When you look at really good art and you go, I could not paint this. I'm just going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
You feel sort of like the music or the art is embracing you and bringing you in because you can't get there on your own.
Yeah. And I think in terms of singing, that's more so than anything else, because we can all sing to a certain extent. I mean, we can all open our mouths and sing. Some people.
Because a lot of people tell me that they can't sing, and that's what I keep saying. Yes, you can.
You can. Everybody can sing.
It's like how everyone can do maths. It's just you can do probably one type, but you don't realize you can.
Yeah. Well, even if your singing is, and there's, you know, some people have termed it anti-singing.
People have been very successful in their careers doing anti-singing.
There's been some amazing anti-singers along the way, you know. So even if it's more of a you know, a voice that's more of a talk than a sing, or you know, it's quite atonal, you know. Paired with the right music, it can be really amazing, and it can be really.
It's about the right music, because I don't want to hear Tom Waits doing Nessun Dorma, but I also don't want to hear.
Well, actually, I would. just because I think he would deconstruct. The great thing about Tom Waits is he would deconstruct it completely. It wouldn't sound like Nessun Dorma, but it would be interesting. Yeah, carry on, sir.
We can send a suggestion. Yeah. But I think that's also the thing with the way that we play music, in that it's easier the way that we make songs to make it work with a voice, or the voice that I have.
Yeah.
Like we did the more traditional sort of drums and bass and guitar before this band, and it was harder for my voice to work with that music because the music was already there. But the way that we do it now, we can change our instruments, and you even change your guitars.
Talking of the guitar, there's one there. There you
go.
Hi.
He changes and tests them out to see how they work around my voice.
That's really true. It's kind of funny, because if I get a guitar, I'll send it back if it doesn't work with your voice. We'll run through a rehearsal and say, well, does this fight with your voice? Does it occupy the right sonic space? Is it too much high end, too much low end, or whatever? And that's the criteria. It's not whether it's purple or whether it has certain pickups or something like that. It's like, does it work with your voice? Yes or no?
Yeah.
That's it.
The guitar is sort of the second singer in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is an interesting question from Mike. This is good. Do you think the use of computers to assist in making music has distracted from its purity?
It's interesting. Well, I don't think that we aspire to purity. I think that what we do is we use computers in a way that allows us to use, say, the guitar and my voice to the full extent.
Yeah.
Sort of not hedge it in a format that's already existing. Like we can put sounds in and change them, but that being said, we don't try to change the guitar and the voice themselves too much using computers.
No.
I totally get what Mike was asking there, though, because one thing that at least I, and I guess we have self-consciously tried to do, is to make sure that over that sheen of the MIDI drums and the washes of synths and stuff, I make sure I don't clean up anything too much. Like I want the finger squeaks on the strings in there, and I want the occasional, like on the new album that's coming out this week, there's one bad note in a solo. And it's like, I hear that bad note, but it's kind of cool because I literally did the solo first take. I didn't practice it. I didn't do anything. It's like, it's in Revolution.
Oh, I've never. Yeah, I don't think I've noticed that bad note.
There's a little mock Spanish.
It's not a bad note, you see. It's the right note, but it's a lot of people just say it's in the wrong place.
Right.
Oh, but I love the guitar in that song.
Right. But it's also why we really, really, I mean, unless it's one of those weird things where you got an incredible take and it's like, oh, there's one bad note. Okay, I'll go in an auto-tune and torque that one note back into place. But you won't hear the auto-tune kind of thing, because I think it's beautiful to feel the rough edges of all of this on top of all the computers. I think it's more interesting.
Sometimes when it's late at night and we've rehearsed for the 100th time, I just go, please, could you just auto-tune me?
And it's, no, we're getting the right take.
We're rehearsing more.
But that's every singer, right? Because every singer, I mean, listening to your own voice and being comfortable with your own voice is a really difficult thing.
I can listen to our old albums, but I have to wait like till the year after they, right?
Yeah.
Because right after we've recorded it, the only thing I can hear is all the parts where I wanted to do it differently.
Yeah. But that's, I mean, in a way, when you're constructing a song and you're just in that moment of coming out with the material, you know, hitting those colors
Right.
as you go, right? Or if you're playing live, you've created that song and you're playing a song in front of other people. That's where, you know, none of that matters.
Yeah.
Do
Right?
you, Graham, when you go to see a live show, do you want it to sound the same way that it did on the recording, or do you like it when it sounds different?
That's a very good point. I like it if it sounds. See, now here's where I'm going to agree with Eric, right? Or I'm going to go back to Eric's point a minute ago. I think there's certain bits that you want to sound the same, but you want it to sound different at the same time, right? So I'm going to go middle ground with this. I think sometimes, and I have been to shows, probably the one that sticks in my mind most was Bob Dylan.
Oh,
Right,
yes.
Right. I went to see Bob Dylan, supported by, bless his soul. I can't even remember his name now. Anyway, I went to see Bob Dylan play with a backing band, and he
Sexton?
changed everything.
Yes.
Absolutely everything, all the way through. Keys, time signatures, tunings, everything. I mean, he must have been an absolute nightmare. Tom Petty, that's
Wow.
Right. Yeah. Tom Petty and his band did an amazing job of keeping up with him. Right. But it was so so far from the original on every single level. That it was hard work.
I noticed that I saw him several times on one tour, and I noticed that for every night he would do some of the same songs and they would sound different, and it was sort of a race in the audience to be the first person who caught on to what song they were playing.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, that's. Oh, sorry. The dog's agreeing with me. That's what happens when a parcel gets delivered in the middle of a show. All right.
But it's funny because you're sitting there and you're thinking, is this like a Rolling Stone or is this Leopard Skin Pillbox Hat? No, it's what is it? Oh, Subterranean Homesick Blues. And you're just like, what song is he doing here?
Yeah, exactly. So for me, there is a point where it can become too far detached from the original.
I guess we never have that issue really because we always have the backing tracks that will let you know what song it is.
Right, but we'll still, I mean, I'll decide, and I'll decide I'm not going to play guitar this verse. And in this verse, I'm going to use the fuzz pedal.
That really confuses me.
And that always confuses you.
Yeah. I
don't know if it's notes are in a song, but sometimes he'll like change up a guitar part and the visual that I'm seeing suddenly is missing a point. Like there used to be a tree right there.
Right.
Where am I?
You don't do it the other way around, okay? Because I was a nightmare as a singer when I was in the band, because I used to go, we'd be in the middle of a song. I go, do you know what? I'm going to sing that verse now first. Because do you know what? I actually want to play with the lyrical content here.
Apparently Morrissey did that a lot. I saw an interview with Johnny Marr, and he was talking about it was even writing the songs. It was interesting because Morrissey would start a section, and then you would expect him to keep singing, and he would just leave an instrumental bit, and then he'd come in and finish the verse someplace else, and that it contributed to his unique approach to playing guitar.
I try not to do that because I know that what I would hear from the side would be like, "Why aren't you singing?"
Yeah. No, I think it's interesting how music evolves when you do things like that as well. And you're right, it did with the Smiths. You'd get, he couldn't just have that section played like that again. He'd have to orchestrate, if you like, this section because there was going to be and when you can hear it when you listen to some of the Smith songs, they don't follow always follow that natural structure. There's sometimes these little sections to it, additional section, but it's beautiful because it also draws you in as a listener because it's the unexpected.
Yeah,
So
I
think
trust whoever you're on stage with, though, to catch you if you just like fall off like that unexpectedly or do something different.
Quite often, you know, you can't have that throughout the whole band. You know, so for you, and that's typically where you use computers, is it not? Is it drums and sort of sequencing in the back? So that's your rhythm section, if you like.
Right.
That's your constant.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the rest of it you can play with. So that's good.
Yeah. As long as we don't change up the tempo.
So if people are watching, people are listening now, in terms of your music, because we never play any music on the show, 2 reasons being it costs a fortune to play music on these things.
Yeah.
You know, because you got to pay all of that anyway. And secondly, it builds tension. People then need to go and find the music for themselves. So that's great because they get curious. How would you describe your music now?
We get the question a lot. We never know quite how. I mean, it's easier to describe it than what it's not, but that's not as informative.
Someone said that they thought we sounded a little bit like the Raveonettes, which I thought was interesting and not completely inaccurate. But twice after gigs, we've come off, maybe more than twice, somebody's come up and said, wow, you guys remind me of the Kills. And what's embarrassing is that after it happened twice, I have to confess I'd never heard the Kills. I had no idea who they were. And so I quickly had, all right, the Kills are, oh, wow, they're really good. Yeah. Oh, shit, we sound like we're the Kills.
I think it's a little bit different, too, because it's not always easy to put us in a genre. And I've noticed that when we're playing live and booking shows, like, where do we fit in? It used to be up in Ohio in a city that was mostly metal. We definitely didn't fit in. And in Atlanta, I'm not sure either. Is there anyone else who sounds like when you need to find another band to book a show?
That's the thing, isn't it? I mean, I think what people should do is start not pigeonholing bands into genres, right? But just talking about what they are.
Right.
Yeah, because it's so much easier, right? So you go, this band, I Am A Rocketship, is definitely not, well, for the time being, because who knows, you could go there.
Yeah,
that's the other thing as well, right?
I mean, we haven't tried. No, I was going to say we haven't tried metal, but we have tried one song, I think.
We did a Rammstein cover.
Yeah,
that was. There you
go. And on the new album, we have a bossa nova. I keep trying to convince them we should do a whole bossa nova album.
I guess with us, the one way to describe us is that we always put melody first. It's always about the melody first. And then after that, whatever sounds are required to support the melody, which is why I suppose we can be a little off-putting, because you really will hear a Rammstein cover followed by a bossa nova, followed by something that sounds vaguely trip-hop. And it's not like we're trying to be Ween and just confuse people. It's just that, well, this song sounds like it should be a bossa nova.
Yeah.
So it is.
And it is part of the reason for that is just the fun that you have in creating.
Oh, definitely. We just want to enjoy it.
And also because we don't have the bassist and the drummer be actual people, we have a lot more freedom. Like we can make the drums sound the way we want. We don't have to find a drummer who knows how to play it.
Right.
Well, getting back again to Mike's point, that's actually where the computers have actually elevated all of this as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because that actually people think, or a drum machine or using sequencing software or whatever, using Logic or Pro Tools or whatever, you punch this thing in and therefore everything's going to come out the same. But actually, when you think about it, in a way, going back in time, quite often with bands when they started up, if you had a drummer, that's where it all starts sounding the same, because the drummer was limited in their playing to what that drum, unless they were brilliant, that drummer might have been limited to what they were capable of.
Right.
And every song, how many people have been in bands where the drummer was like, every single time it's like,
Yeah.
and it's like, okay, just do another song.
Yeah.
But that's also like, when you discover a band that has a great drummer, that can be the thing about the whole band that makes you just keep listening. It's like, this man, I really like drum sound.
I think at the end of the day, getting back to Mike's point, it's like this. There's some saying it's not the tool, it's the carpenter. I mean, I think that if you don't have much imagination, or if you are very, very specifically focused on a single genre, no matter what instruments you have and no matter what players you have, you're going to produce a given thing. And you're right, in a weird way, using computers has given us a certain amount of almost be able to be more pure, in that, for instance, the last track on this new album, no guitar, no drums. It's all MIDI, it's a plucked harp and a mellotron and Linda singing.
Yeah.
And we couldn't do that if we had a rock band. And it's like, all right, Bobby, figure out something to do on drums here. And all right, Tony, figure out what to do on bass here, even though in my head, all I hear is a harp and a mellotron.
Yeah. And that, you see, goes back because you mentioned Bach.
Yeah.
So that in a way goes back to kind of classical music, doesn't it? Because there was, that's the thing. If you go back to that era and writing music, there was no ego in it in terms of the orchestra. Right? If you didn't have a part in this piece, you didn't have a part.
Right.
Yeah. It was about texture and sound and just building whatever was necessary out of whatever was there. Yeah. But in a way, when you've grown up and you're in a 4-piece band or whatever, as you say, it's quite hard. You say, actually, you're not doing anything in this song.
It is interesting because I guess when you think about it, I always thought of him as being someone who would be in a 4-piece like garage band, but imprinted on as a little duckling is like Bach.
Yeah,
he's like it's in the marrow.
I'm a nerd.
Yeah, well, that's great, and this world needs nerds, so that's good. As long as you don't get tipped out of the box too quickly.
Yeah.
Do you have nerds there? The little
the little we only
Yeah.
sell them at movie theaters, though. I think they breed there. That's their natural environment.
So, final question before we talk about the name of the album and where people can get it, so that they can, in their droves, go and get it very shortly. Don't laugh; it might happen. You never know.
I was imagining that there are dozens of them.
Yeah, they're lined up, queuing up as we speak, and in the audience. Right. So, if you could collaborate with anyone, alive or dead, who would that be?
Oh, boy.
Alive or dead? Oh, I think for me, I would like to do something that's in a genre that is completely different from what we've normally done. Like Run the Jewels, like do some hip hop, because I can't do it, and it would be an interesting. It would force us to do things a lot differently than what we normally do,
Okay.
which is really what I enjoy when we're making music. It's trying something different and seeing if it works.
Strangely, I almost have the same answer. I mean, not far from here, if we could find a way, if you're out there listening, LP, we would love you to produce our next album, because I think that my two favorite producers right now are LP and I don't even know if she's active anymore, MIA, because they both just throw the rule book out the window.
Yeah, right.
You listen to Run the Jewels, or you listen to MIA, it's like you don't know what's coming next. They'll put anything in there. And I love that kind of confidence. And I'd love to have somebody just come in and say, Rick, you're not picking up the guitar for this album, deal with it. It's like, tell me what to do. Let's do this.
But it's interesting. It's when you answer that and I answered it, I realized that what we're answering is who would we like to work with as a producer.
Correct.
So there might be someone who's like, what musician would we like to have on to work with?
Who? Well, you want to play with Entwistle.
Or anyone who's very good at like the bass drums. Is there someone who plays the timpani?
I'm sure we
Yes.
could.
Yes, there is. There's some very famous timpani players. Yeah.
We don't have enough timpani in our songs.
So something tells me there may be an inkling that you might want to work with someone that can orchestrate.
That would be really cool because I'm terrible at it.
Oh no.
I don't know what I'm
just
doing.
sit next to me and you're very good at it.
No, but what I mean is, like, someone that has, someone that has a command of a big orchestra, that could bring a big orchestra in.
Someone who visualizes all the parts completely differently from what we're capable of. Yeah.
Well, we could ask my brother. I mean, he was actually a music major and studied conducting, so he would be the sort of person who could do it.
There you go.
I never thought about that. We should bribe your brother.
Yeah. Well, yeah. There you go. Maybe one song, next album, full orchestra. Just see if you can find one lying around sometime.
I'm sure there are cheap orchestras out there for hire.
Yeah.
Well, I think the cheapest way of doing it is get everything ready, and then find one that's in a pit somewhere at a theatre, and just sneak in with recorders and just, give them 5 minutes. Sheet music down, go.
Graham, we're quickly.
Yeah.
Take that tip and
run around sneaking around orchestra pits. We'll call you.
Hey, look! Think of the publicity. Just go with that.
That publicity is always number one with us.
Absolutely, Eric, Ellie, it's been an absolute pleasure. Before we go, so the name of the album will be
Lies and Legends.
Oh, there you go. So called because.
Because the year 2020 was full of people spreading lies and building legends about themselves and other people.
Absolutely. So great title. And this comes out when? When's the album out?
Thursday the 11th.
Yeah,
2
November
days.
11th.
There you go. Hopefully, if I give you my email, it might arrive on my doorstep. And where can people get it?
I guess anywhere you normally would get your music. You can find it on Spotify. You can find it on Bandcamp.
iTunes, Amazon, all the usuals. The best is always Bandcamp because that way you can actually order a physical unit, and we get paid a pittance from Bandcamp as opposed to a micro pittance from the streaming platforms.
Absolutely. Well, you've heard of my famous campaign by now, haven't you?
Pardon me?
You've heard of my famous campaign by now? No? Oh, let me enlighten you then, because you haven't heard of it. Okay, so basically, I tell every single guest that comes on to do this, and I'm hoping that we get enough guests doing this so that we just start a movement, which is what I want you to do is produce a piece of merchandise, which is a T-shirt with a logo or something for the band on the front, and then I listen to I Am a Rocketship on, and then a list of the all of the streaming sites on the back, and then people can buy that for 12, 15 pounds or whatever, and that pays for the fact that they're listening to it.
That's a good idea. We actually have a couple of posters here that do that, but no shirts.
There you go.
All right.
So, yeah, you see, it's a great idea, isn't it? I just think if all bands did that, and we'd have a world of people walking around with "I listen to this" on this, and that's it. That's taken care of.
You should consider a career in social marketing.
It's funny you should say that. It's funny you should say that. And it all started. I'll finish on this. It all started years ago, my friend, when actually for my degree, which was actually in that kind of area, I wrote a thesis on. Do you remember billboards? Those big billboards, right? I said what we should do for this campaign is we should actually take every single blank billboard, right, and we should then go to all the newspapers and say that our campaign features nothing on blank billboards, and it promotes. Right, and it promotes this product, and this is why we've done it, right? Because you think the amount of free advertising you'd get from doing that.
Yeah.
It's genius, isn't it?
That is genius.
Every single blank billboard in the land, You could actually pay for a few, but every single blank one would be free advertising.
If you were in this country, somebody would say, "Buddy, you're thinking outside the box. You're shifting some paradigms here.
Yeah.
Let's do a memo on this."
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's get some buy-in.
Every single T-shirt with no print is actually a T-shirt advertising us.
This is true.
Perfect. You see, you're getting into it now. There you go.
Thank you for
Ellie.
marketing advice.
It's a pleasure. Eric, Ellie, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. You'll probably see this again on a radio station sometime soon, because I have a program on Blue Talks Radio every Friday night, and I shall let them have this show because it's been tremendous, so that people can hear it yet again in another whole way. But I look forward, as I say, I look forward to hearing to the album, and I'll be listening out in particular for all of those little vocal bits that you perhaps didn't like, but I will like, and I very much in particular will be listening out for that bum note.
Yep. Oh, you'll hear it.
Yeah, that will be my favourite note of the whole album.
Thank you.
That note right there. Thank you. I'm a rocket ship. Thanks for your time today. Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.